Hey, everybody, welcome back. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of interviewing someone individually, we are turning to the wisdom of the crowds on Reddit, where people are happy to talk about their jobs. These are people outside of my network, obviously, but because my network is limited and because I was sick all last week and had to move a bunch of interviews around, I figured let's just go see what the world has to offer about their jobs. So I hope you enjoy. Let me know down in the comments whether you like this kind of shorter format, and we'll see if we do it again in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and share with all your career curious friends. Okay, here we go. This is a Reddit thread. Someone just basically said, hey, I'm looking for a change in my career. Who actually likes your job? And so we're going to read some of the responses to that. The first one, here we go. She says, I'll pipe up since I have a more non-traditional career. I'm an airline pilot. Large U.S. airline. I've been in the industry for 10 plus years. I am starting to love it again. COVID was a very rough time frame with a job furlough, and I've switched airlines twice since the start of COVID, which means starting over pay and seniority wise. This ties into what I dislike most. The industry can be very unstable, and truthfully, I have a few transferable skills to another job or industry. I do not love working a traditional Monday through Friday 9 to 5 jobs. Our trips range from day trips to week-long trips, depends on your aircraft, and international or domestic trips. We average 13 to 16 days off per month, which allows for an excellent work-life balance, in my opinion. Man, if I could only work 13 days a month, that would be awesome. And I mean, like she said, there are some other disadvantages, but yeah, let's keep reading. Best traits to do this job well are attention to detail, strong communication and reasoning skills, and the ability to think or plan ahead, dealing with fuel, forecasted weather, maintenance issues. While it is a STEM field, you don't have to be super strong at math, which is a common misconception. Yeah, that's cool. I actually went to a couple days of ground school in a previous job that I had, and I was surprised how much of it was like dealing with your fuel and how much fuel do you have and which tank is it in and stuff like that. A lot of things that you don't typically think about. So that was the first part. Here, somebody asked as a reply, "Can you talk about your journey going through flight school?" And then she responds again, of course, I did not want to make my original post a novel. I attended a 4-year university right after high school. It was a state university with an aviation degree program. So I have a BS. I also acquired an MS along the way. The undergrad degree is set up with flight labs where you go out and fly a few times per week in addition to all your aviation classes and normal university classes. Since you're in training, you're flying a small piston 2 or 4 person aircraft. Your progress through private instrument, commercial, multi-engine courses with each semester. Wow, that's fast. 1 semester for private, 1 semester for instrument. That seems faster than what I expected. Most collegiate aviation programs also require you to complete your certified flight instructor. This in turn allows you to instruct other students in the pipeline and build your total flight time. You need 1,000 or 1,500 flight hours to get hired at an airline, depending on your school's accreditation. The summer between my junior and senior year, I began instructing. I graduated and stayed 1 additional year at my university working full-time as an instructor and went to my first airline at age 23. That sounds really interesting. So I had no idea that if you did this for your college degree, it seems like that is a significantly faster and cheaper way to do it than what I've seen. If you're planning on going to a 4-year college anyway and spending the money that comes from, I imagine this is a little bit more expensive since you have to pay for hours flying. But that's really cool. If you could start out as a pilot on an airline, maybe as a first officer at age 23, that's pretty fast into a pretty good job. And she continues, this is not the only route. If you're interested in changing careers, which I found is fairly common for pilots, you can attend an accelerated flight program where you do all of your flight training in 6 to 12 months and then time build for another year and go to an airline. Airlines like United and American also have their own training flight schools. That's interesting. I didn't know that. There's also the military. I'm not the gal to ask about that process. I only know as much. It's a much longer timeline, but an excellent fit for those who want to serve. Yeah, one of my friends actually got a flight slot. She was doing ROTC when we were at BYU together, and she did her flight training through the military, and then she's now a flight instructor. And I think she maybe even got to fly the B-2. I don't know if that's her full-time job now, but I mean, that's, as an airplane geek over here, that's pretty amazing. Anyway, I used to joke, or I heard the joke that you can tell when you're flying on an airline if your pilot is a Air Force pilot or a Navy pilot by how soft the landing is. I don't know if that was a jab from Air Force pilots to Navy pilots, but if you're a Navy pilot and you're landing on a carrier, you hit the ground pretty fast. And Air Force pilots, of course, have a long runway every time, so they bring it in nice and easy. Probably not true, but I thought it was kind of funny. Okay, great. Let's go back to somebody else's response. Remember, someone was just asking, "Hey, who actually likes your job? What do you do?" And here's the next response. Okay, I, 32 female, am a program manager for the U.S. Forest Service, and I love my job. Basically, I am a botanist, but my work tends to be more broad. The past 8 years, I have worked in many related fields, building up my experience to land this job. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in botany. I currently make $85,000 as a starting wage and live in a low-cost LCOLA, low cost of living area, small town. Is that what that means? I don't know. LCOLA, low cost, small town. My current position doesn't have a ton of outside work, but previously I had jobs where I hiked into amazing wilderness areas and spent every day outside. The people that I work with are all super supportive of work-life balance, and many have families. My son is almost 10 months old, and I have a ton of leave and a flexible hybrid schedule. I also love that I work with a lot of strong and smart women that have navigated successful careers with a family. It definitely takes a certain personality type to be a program manager. The 3 areas that I manage are pretty different and across almost 2 million acres. I am a huge multitasker and struggle to sit still and only do one thing all day. I'm very organized and can easily switch between totally different tasks easily. Another key trait would be the ability to work with very different personalities. That's an interesting thing that I would not have expected for Forest Service, but it makes sense now that I read it, where if you're kind of in charge of whatever might go wrong or whatever needs help in 2 million acres of Forest Service land, that's pretty big. And being able to kind of switch between stuff is kind of, at least from my experience, pros and cons there. You're not going to get bored being stuck doing one thing all day, but at the same time, you got to keep track of where everything is and what's the most urgent or most important thing to do. Anyway, she finishes by saying botany is very specialized and takes a lot of schooling, but program management is a great field for the right person. Yeah, botany is an interesting field of science. That's one of those where you can get really down into the weeds. Get it? Every pun is intended, even when it wasn't intended. Botany, really cool science. I don't know what the opportunities are for someone with a botany degree, but this seems like a really great kind of position for something like that. Okay, then we actually had a comment from another Forest Service worker. She says, "Hi, hello Forest Service. I'll add my data point under yours since it's similar. I'm 36 female. I also love my job with the Forest Service. I work in an AEC related position." I don't know what that is, so feel free to leave it down below. Designing and overseeing the construction of recreation related facilities like campgrounds, trails and trailheads, visitor services, etc. I enjoy all aspects of my work, whether it's getting deep into a workflow in AutoCAD, capturing a survey, or overseeing an active construction project out in the woods. So this seems more like architecture, engineering. Maybe that's what AEC is, architecture, engineering, construction. I don't know. And she goes on, my biggest dislike is that there aren't a lot of opportunities for advancement if I want to stay in my specific job series, which I very much do. There aren't many of us, and opportunities to be a 12 are few and far between. I feel sort of stuck at GS 11. Now, I'm not that familiar with the government service pay grades, but I know it's kind of very standardized of when you get a promotion and what levels you get to. And it seems like she is kind of stuck. If she wants to keep doing this job that she loves, there's not a whole lot for her to advance into doing the same stuff. All right, so she continues. I went to graduate school for my career and worked in private industry before shifting to the Forest Service 6.5 years ago. Creativity and strong independent work ethic with confidence to make decisions are huge for my role. There is no redundancy in my position on my forest or even on the neighboring forests, and people expect me to know it and know it well. I make $91,000 in a high cost of living area. This is a huge increase from what I was paid when I worked in private, and my work-life balance is much better here. That's interesting because usually when you hear about government jobs, you hear, oh, there's a whole lot of people kind of doing nothing. And from these two comments, it sounds like for the Forest Service, at least, you are kind of the one in charge and you have to make it work in whatever you're over, whatever you're covering. Really interesting. I've never thought about a career in the Forest Service, but it sounds like it's a pretty good gig. Okay, we'll go through one more before we close up for today. This, again, is another response to, hey, do you like your job? What kind of job do you do? It's a little bit shorter response to begin with. My career in software development literally changed my life. It took me from living well below the poverty line on disability to 25 times above it today. It was the first time in my life I genuinely felt valued and respected as a person. It's also a very disability-proof field that allows me a lot of flexibility, especially since I get to work from home. 10 out of 10 would recommend to anyone with a genuine interest in the field. Here we go. I've heard a lot that good software engineers really have great jobs. Someone followed up with a comment. I would love to know more about your experience. How did you make the switch, and what do you do in a day-to-day? I'm transitioning to software engineering after 10 years of being a copywriter. Okay, so this was the question. Here's the response. I was born with cerebral palsy, and I've always jokingly referred to myself as an avid indoorsman. I'm just going to do a sidebar here. Every person I've known with cerebral palsy has been hilarious. I don't know what it is, if it's also in the genetics to be funny, but everyone I've ever met with cerebral palsy is also a comedian. Anyway. Okay, he goes on. I learned BASIC as a kid and took C++ when I got into high school. The teacher pulled me aside and told me, hey, you should think about this as a career. After high school, I moved out and lived on disability for a while. Eventually, vocational rehab helped me get enough grants and scholarships to pay for college. I graduated in 2008, and I've been coding professionally since. So it seems like a pretty big turnaround here. Starting out as a junior, you'll be spoon-fed to some extent. The work that management gives you will be very well defined, and you'll get help from more experienced developers. As you gain more experience, you'll be expected to be able to go out and independently try to figure out what's wrong, what you should be doing, or how to solve a problem. Once you're senior or staff, so once you're promoted to that level as a senior or staff developer, the game changes a bit more. You're expected to help other people solve their problems. This could be helping newbie, juniors, seniors, sure, but it could also be your boss telling you something more broad, like we're trying to cut how much we spend on server costs, or we have this intermittent issue that nobody can figure out. Take a crack at it, and you dive in. Okay, so then there's another follow-up question from a different commenter. I'm looking into software engineering, a similar career. Do you have any tips on where to start coding? And the advice for starting out, he says, if you're just starting out, Python is a really lovely, newbie-friendly language. Ultimately, you should focus on concepts more than one particular language, because with the right grasp of the concepts, they can be applied to almost any language, and they're very easy to pick up when learning something new. I agree. If you're interested in coding, start with Python. I am not a great coder. My job as a data scientist uses kind of a very specific part of Python to do most of my work. But when you compare that to the C++ they tried to teach me in college, it's just way easier to understand in general. So yeah, if you're interested in coding, especially if you're still young in high school, it's totally free. Find some videos about Python. Google probably has a free certificate for it, and start making stuff. If you just want to look up how do I build this thing that I push a button and it lets out some sound or whatever, right? Find something fun and see if you can do it. Generative AI makes this even easier nowadays to learn really fast because it's really good at coding. So that's it. That's what we're talking about today. I hope you've enjoyed this little glimpse into 3 different careers. If you like this format, leave a comment down below. I'm happy to do it again. If you have an interesting job or you have one of these jobs, I'd really love to hear about it. So leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe and share these videos with all of your career curious friends.